Hello, welcome to my channel. This is Yuate. In today's video, I'm gonna show you guys what I made in my kitchen from scratch. And as you can see from the title, I live in Rwanda, so sometimes it's kind of hard to find certain things at the stores or to find really great quality things. Since I used to live in the US, yeah, I just found that it's harder to find that here. But then the greatest thing is that you can find the best quality raw ingredients here, and so you can try to make a lot of things. So here you're watching me make sourdough bread. So we're mixing the dough right now, and I am working with my daughter here. I love doing these things with my daughter because it gives her a lot of practical skills, and I consider this learning in school just as much as the writing and reading, because these kind of experiences are just invaluable. And it's amazing actually how much children soak up. So what you're watching me do here is I'm putting the sourdough starter, and so that is very easy to make. You just mix flour and water, and then you let it ferment over a few days, but you keep adding like some flour and some water to kind of increase the amount. This is not new, honestly, to Africans. At least in Ethiopia, we make, sourdough bread is like traditionally, we call it traditional bread actually, and we make it all the time, and it's one of my favorites. So it is sour, but it has a lot of really good benefits. So there, the yeast, since it's not like your store-bought yeast, and it's wild, meaning like it's the bacteria and yeast that exist in nature that ferment the flour and water and the bread. It has so many health benefits. It helps the bacteria in our gut or in our stomach, the good bacteria. So it is probiotic. So this is not a recipe video where I'm like gonna tell you exactly what measurements and everything. It's just kind of to show you the things that you can actually make in your kitchen, and maybe inspire you to try to do some. So I'm sifting the flour here. I used here a mix of whole wheat flour and then some of the white flour. So when you use this kind of flour, wheat flour or any kind of flour, it's best to use organic flours because they are not sprayed with harmful herbicides and pesticides, and those things cause a lot of different health issues. So it's best to do that. But if you don't have access to organic flours or grains, then it's okay to use whatever you have, because there's research that actually shows that the fermentation process of making the sourdough bread breaks down some of the pesticides and reduces it. So that's great news. So yeah, so here I'm just mixing the flour, water, salt, the starter, and then some honey to just add a tiny bit of sweetness. Honestly, once the bread is made, you don't really taste it because again, it's sourdough, so it gets sour as it ferments. So first you kind of mix everything, and you let it sit for about 15 minutes or so, and that process is called autolyze. It allows the gluten to relax and makes the dough easy to work with. So I only wait 15 to 20 minutes, but I know some people do an hour or 2 hours. It really depends on where you live, the temperature, like the climate in the place, in the area that you live. But yeah, I mean I've been enjoying making this. It tastes really good. It's easy, and it's honestly, like, a lot of people think sourdough takes a long time. What takes a long time is the waiting process. The work that you have to do is actually very minimal. So here I'm covering it to wait for the 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna go outside to check on chicks. So at this time when I was recording the video, we had quite a few chicks that hatched from our chickens, but unfortunately all of them are not alive at this time. I thought that we could actually, grow them the natural way where they stay under their mother at night and outside during the day. But then temperatures dropped one night and a lot of them got cold. We brought them inside and tried to nurse them back to life, but that was not possible. But this little one had survived for 3 weeks actually, which was really great. She was quite a strong one, and I had high hopes for her. But our dog found her because she had slid through a crack of her, her daytime coop, and killed her. So it's very unfortunate, and I've been very, very sad about that because they're so cute, and I was just so excited to have some chicks around, running around, but it's quite hard to raise them. So I'm gonna have to think a bit about that one before I decide to do it again. But I mean, I've talked to people who've done this before, and they say, yeah, the first 2 weeks of a chick's life are quite hard. So that's a lesson learned. So this is our little murderer dog who ended our chick's life. And then here I'm just checking on the garden. So we grow our own food, like not all of it, but some things. So we were done with the season and had replanted in a different way, and we had to actually fence it because the chickens and the dog, they were getting in there. Especially the chickens, they would go scratch up all the seeds that we had planted, and we even had to use this, the plant to cover up some collard greens because the chickens love to eat that, but that definitely didn't work because they ate everything. And now we're doing it, we're redoing it again completely. And then here I am looking at eggplant. Eggplant is actually one of the easiest things to grow in your home, and it grows all year round, which is amazing. We don't eat that much eggplant, so I reduced the number of plants that we have this time around, and I wanted to maximize more on things that we eat, like tomatoes, and things like that we use on a regular. So I'm back here, and then now I'm actually gonna knead the dough, and so you don't, some people use what do they call it, a mixer to knead the dough. You don't really need that. You don't really need it. You can see me doing that, and honestly, my goal is to show you that you can do these things, with minimal gadgets or equipment or tools, just using your hands and things like that. And I actually quite enjoy working with the dough and kneading it with my hand because it just feels very satisfying. And honestly, all of these things that you'll see me make are quite satisfying to make from scratch because you get to know exactly the kind of ingredients that you put in. And then also they have really great health benefits, and for me, I take pride in making sure that my family, my kids, is nourished and fed with with these great ingredients and beneficial foods. So yeah, you'll need to knead it for a bit of time, not too much, but you kind of like, you're seeing me like stretch it and fold it like to make sure that everything is mixed up, and it's this allows actually to create those pockets that you see in sourdough bread. Mine doesn't have like super big pockets or holes because I'm using whole grain flour. So whole grain flours are can be a bit dense when the bread is, so like the holes are quite close together. And some people ferment their dough for overnight or for a longer time. I'm doing this on the same day because it's quite warm where we are, and also I kind of like the idea of starting sometime in the morning, and then by the evening we have some bread, and the next morning we can use it. So That is pretty nice. But yeah, I think for me, one of the other things that I really wanted to show in this video is that I feel like as Africans, especially those of us living in cities, or abroad, we kind of have adopted these ways where, we want to use a lot more processed foods and, have kind of forgotten our ways the ways of our ancestors where, they were making things from scratch and stuff like that. And I always hear some people who moved from, whether it's the US or the UK, the diaspora complaining, oh, I can't find XYZ here and I can't find this here. And I miss those, processed things. And honestly, that aren't even that great for our bodies. But um, I just want to encourage you that if you have the raw ingredients, there's honestly almost nothing that you cannot make by yourself. So here I am peeling and cutting up some plantains that we were gonna eat for lunch that day. I mean, as a side, I like to do mine in the oven. I definitely love the fried, but we don't eat a lot of fried food, so my oven is really my holy grail. So that's actually one of the things I really struggled with when we first moved here, because the rental we were staying at did not have, they had a stove, which was horrible, but the oven was not working, and I was so used to making things in the oven back in the US, but also it's healthier because it's not deep fried, and there's so much you can do in the oven. So but now, yes, this is what I'm gonna put in the oven to go as a side with our lunch. So I'm putting it in a bowl, and then I'm gonna add some seasonings and then some oil. And I wanted to chat a little bit about oil and the quality of oils here. So again, if you guys want the recipes for any of the things that I made, I'm happy to make a separate recipe video, but this is just really, again, to encourage you and to show you that it's possible to make these things from scratch at home. So we use avocado oil. Luckily, they have avocado oil here. It's produced here in Rwanda because there are a ton of avocados. And it is really good quality oil because it has a high smoke point, and if you're frying things or using a lot of high heat, it is really the best oil to use. It is more expensive than your sunflower or your vegetable oils, but those actually are very harmful to our health because they have to go through various chemical processes to actually come out as the oil that you can use there, and they also go rancid because they're just not meant for high heat, so they have a very high smoke point, low smoke point, sorry, and they're not beneficial for health. So they cause a lot of inflammation and a lot of different lifestyle diseases that that are very common nowadays here in Africa. So I encourage you to use something like avocado oil or butter or ghee in your cooking, because those are really healthy fats and they're beneficial. So I use somewhat of a refined version of the avocado, which isn't the best. Yeah, so I use that because my husband does not like avocados, and the extra virgin avocado oil has a strong avocado taste, which I absolutely love, but he's not a fan of that. So I use it's the one that's a bit refined. So the extra virgin is cold pressed, and it's the best. I still buy that, and I use it when we make fries in the oven. And honestly, give it a try and let me know, because it is so delicious. Yeah. So for me, that's kind of what I want to talk about. Oils, I can talk about them in detail. So I don't buy any, vegetable oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil, soy oil, yeah, like soybean oil, that's very common, and then even peanut oil. So I just stick to my avocado and then extra virgin olive oil when you can find it, but I don't recommend using the cooking olive oil because most of the time that is mixed with the same oils that I told you guys to avoid. that go rancid. So yeah, it's quite hard to find. So now after I put that in the oven, I'm transitioning to making butter. So we get fresh milk from the cow um, every morning, and since the rainy season was over and we are deep in the dry season, the milk of the cow is actually quite fatty, and yeah, it has a lot of cream. So I've been saving the cream. This is probably like 4 or 5 days worth of cream that I saved. um, and then I make it into butter, which is quite easy to make. And actually, I accidentally came up with something. Well, I didn't come up with it, but I accidentally made something. Like, look at the fat right now, because I'm even making my son smell it. It's just, yeah, look at that cream, and it's so I kind of let it sit for a little bit longer than I wanted before making it. So I actually ended up making cultured butter, which is a fermented type of butter, because the milk that I separated with the cream ferments, and also ferments the butter, the cream with it. And when you make the butter, it kind of has a tiny bit of a tangy taste, but honestly, like, you can't really tell. That it is very beneficial, similar to the sourdough, because it has those, probiotic good bacteria that support our good bacteria. So here my son is, helping me. Um, what is it? I don't know how you call it, but extract, I guess, the butter, because you kind of have to use a hand blender and blend it so that the butter separates. And then I'm using a cotton cloth here to strain the butter and separate it from the buttermilk. And the buttermilk actually is also, you can use it to make pancakes, waffles, and it is delicious and amazing. And you can actually also drink it, and it tastes amazing, especially if you chill it for a little bit of time. But it's just amazing for me to see. We got milk, we made butter, and then we have buttermilk. Like, there's really no waste. We're using everything. And then usually I also set some milk aside to make yogurt, and I've been making Greek yogurt at home, which we've really enjoyed. And then you can even play with the flavors with that, and add fruits, honey, and vanilla, or whatever suits you to make it more flavorful, or to really mimic the store-bought flavored yogurt. But my kids are very used to these kind of tastes, so they'll eat everything as it is. Um, so yeah, the butter, after it's strained, I'm going to put it in ice cold water. You'll watch me do that, and then put it in the fridge for it to cool and harden. Um, Putting it in ice cold water is nice because it extracts the buttermilk a lot more, and the less water or the less buttermilk the butter has, and it's only the fat, the longer it'll stay in the fridge, or the longer that you can use it, because since it doesn't have the water content is so low, it's not going to go bad quickly. Um, So as you can see, my daughter is back, helping me out here, and we're finishing up with the butter. One thing that I found with just doing things from scratch at home is that you can actually save a lot of money. And some things like butter is honestly not as time taking as I thought, or as many people may think. It's quite easy if you have, a blender and things like that. And then obviously you also get to prioritize your health, because you're using the best quality ingredients and you know exactly what you're putting in there. Um, and even like avoiding, chemicals like BPA that are in the wrappings or the packaging of some of these things. So yeah, I think you just start with where you're at and make one thing at a time, and it's, if you have the time for it, it's really I don't know. I've been telling you guys how much I enjoy it. It's enjoyable, it's relaxing, and honestly, um, and then if you do it with your children or as a family, it really helps you, grow your mind, grow their mind, and learn alongside with them. Because for me, some of these things were new to me, and I started doing it with my daughter, and I found it enjoyable because she would ask me questions, and then I would have to look into it more to answer her questions. So now that the butter has been chilling in the fridge, and you can see that it has hardened, and I had dropped it with the baking paper or parchment paper, and this is what it looks like, and it was very delicious, very, very delicious actually. We tried it with our sourdough bread, and I think I'll probably show you guys a demonstration of that somewhere in this video. But now I'm back to the sourdough, and I didn't record myself putting it in the oven, so the oven was not turned on, just kind of to help with the warmth. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking it hasn't risen the way I would like. I think it was a cold day. It's been a little bit of time since I recorded the video, but yeah, but it didn't look like it had risen well, and this was still me making these things early on, and honestly why I wanted to share. Sometimes I think on YouTube or social media, people want to show the very polished, like perfect, things they've made, which is fine. But for me, I want to show that anyone can do it, so that you guys can see me, like, my sourdough is not perfect. It's not as artistic or beautiful as maybe the ones you'd see if you googled a sourdough recipe, but it's still edible, it's still tasty, and it still has the benefits, so it'll do for me. But I just put some flour on top, for it to allow me to cut into it or make some designs on the dough. But at this time, what I've realized now, looking back, because I've done it several more times now, but you kind of have to leave it open so that the dough kind of creates this film, and it's a bit hard, so that when you cut into it, it's like very easy. But I didn't do that, and the designs that I did definitely didn't come out, which is, again, it's not about perfection. It's really about, for me, I do this for the health and wellness benefits, so I'm okay with it. But the more you do it, the more it'll look great. And then, because I told you guys I was using a whole grain flour, the pockets of the sourdough are not gonna be as big, but also didn't rise as much as I would like it. But then it's kind of one of those things where if I leave it for too long, the dough will lose its structure. But then so it's really trying to find that that healthy, balanced middle ground to make it look great. But I'm okay with it, like I said. So yeah, we tried it with the butter, and it was lovely, and we've been making it ever since. I don't make it like all the time, but I try to make it twice a week. It is relatively a small size, so it doesn't really last us for a long time, especially if we have visitors or something like that. But people who've also tried it, who are not even familiar with sourdough, have really enjoyed it. So now I'm moving on to making kombucha. If you don't know what kombucha is, it's a medicinal fermented tea from China, and it's so you let the tea leaves, water, and sugar ferment, and then they'll give you kind of a starter tea, and then you will do a second phase of fermentation where you can add flavors and things like that, and then have it be more carbonated. So I got the starter from a friend of mine when I was in Ethiopia back in April, and she also gave me some directions of how much starter I need, how much sugar, how much tea leaves to kind of start my first brew. So what you see me picking up is called a SCOBY. So those are bacteria and yeast that are formed from the fermentation of the tea leaves and sugar, and that's what actually kind of helps the kombucha ferment further. So I save this, and I usually save 2 cups of the you call it the starter tea for next time after the first phase of fermentation. But at this point you can actually drink it too, and it tastes really good, but it's plain kombucha, it's unflavored kombucha, which we also really like. But being in the tropics, I honestly like the variety of fruit that you can use here and play with to do the flavor. So I've been doing that. In this video I tried a few flavors. I did watermelon, orange, and rosemary, so that's one flavor together. And then I did strawberry banana because my husband really wanted to try what a banana flavored kombucha would be like. And then I also did mango passion fruit. So this one, what you're seeing me do is I blend the fruit so that it's easier to mix with the kombucha, and then I add 1/4 of this mix to a bottle, and then I add the the unflavored kombucha to it and fill up the bottle so that it can ferment further and infuse the flavors. So this phase can take from 3 days to 7 days, depending on how strong you like your kombucha, or depending on the temperature again, because temperature with all these fermented foods is it's very key. It can make it faster or slower, so you kind of have to pay attention. And so what I do for me is I'll try to taste it at the 3-day mark. I'll open I don't even open it. I kind of like to shake it very gently to kind of see okay, is it carbonated enough, is it fermented enough? And then maybe at the 5-day mark I'll open a bottle, I'll chill it, and then strain the fruits, because you'll see the fruit pulps that the bacteria will eat the sugar from those fruits, and then the pulp will be left. So I strain that and then chill it in the fridge. I found that if you chill it is actually when you really get to taste how good the flavor is and really be able to judge it, because when it's not chilled it's kind of harder to tell. So this is me after bottling them. I honestly ended up not liking these flavors because I didn't end up adding sugar on the second fermentation, which you actually should, because the bacteria eat the fruit's sugar and then they'll make the kombucha a bit sour or bitter. And yeah, I wasn't a fan, but my favorite so far has been strawberry passion fruit. Anything with passion fruit is actually amazing, but this mango one was a bit too sour for my liking. So I think strawberry passion fruit is my favorite. So now I'm moving into making bone broth. Again, bone broth is also not new for Africans. We've been boiling meat and drinking the broth, and really trying to use up the whole of the animal to nourish ourselves. So it's not a new thing, but essentially I cook the bones in the oven just so that they're not raw, and then that also helps release the flavors once you're boiling it to make the broth. And then I add a lot of vegetables like onions, carrots, and some veggie scraps like broccoli scraps that I left and saved in the freezer, and then ginger, garlic, and salt, some other herbs if you want something that's more flavorful, and then filtered water. And the key is something acidic. I use apple cider vinegar, but if you don't have access to it, I believe I'm sure any other vinegar or I don't know, I think lemon juice should work. And then because that helps release the collagen and all of that bone marrow that's inside and make this very jelly like consistency, you know, for the bone broth, and that's what you want. This is actually an amazing first food if you have a baby that's starting solids. You can mix it with their, you know, mashed vegetables in a puree. You can, you know, warm a little bit and give to them to drink. My son actually loves to drink it. Yeah, so then I cook it in a on a charcoal cooker outside, because electricity is quite expensive in Rwanda. But again, this is not a video about perfection. You just use whatever you have and you know, try to get the health benefits as much as possible. With charcoal, obviously, we can cook it longer and we don't have to worry, you know, about the cost or anything like that because it's quite cheap. Yeah, and then after this, you're going to see me make tomato paste. That's something I've started making and I've been enjoying. I buy some ripe organic tomatoes and then cut them up, remove the seeds in a strainer. That's what you'll see me doing here. And then you know, and on a strainer, like, you'll remove all the juice as well and add it to the pot, and that is literally all you need to make tomato paste. And then you just cook it down to, you know, until the water is really gone, and then you'll blend it and then cook it up again until more water is released and evaporated, and then you'll have a thick tomato paste. I'm gonna show you guys how this is cooking, you know, in our outside cooker, or I guess, I don't know if you could call it a kitchen, but yeah, so you'll need to add a few more cups of water as you go for the bone broth because it'll finish the water. And then here's the tomato paste just starting to cook up because I had just put it in there. But this is what it looks like at the end, and I hope you really enjoyed the video and learned something. Until I see you, or I guess make another video next time, have a great time.